After 4 weeks of relative safety in NFL survivor pools, week 5 was deadly as Arizona, the LA Rams, and Buffalo all lost. We'll discuss and debate the 7 games you should be considering in week 6, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the fantasy football consultants. Eric, I survived it somehow. Here we are.
Congratulations.
Let's get to week 6.
Congratulations to your Detroit Lions. All right, let's look at week 6. There's a lot of interesting games, and I think it seems like an easy week, but it might not be. So let's just analyze. Here are the 7 games we think you should be considering. Green Bay is at home, 2-touchdown favorite over Cincinnati. The LA Rams, 8.5-point favorites at Baltimore. And then we have 2 7.5-point favorites against the New York teams. Philadelphia at the New York Giants on Thursday night. And in London, Denver against the New York Jets. And then the other 3 games, slightly smaller spreads. Indianapolis, 5.5-point favorites at home against Arizona. Las Vegas is on the list, 5.5-point favorites at home against Tennessee. And Pittsburgh is at home, 4.5-point favorites over the Cleveland Browns. Michael, I want to see if you agree. Let's talk about the Green Bay game, and I think we can structure this a little bit. Both the lines makers and I personally think this is clearly the pick that is most likely to win. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right survivor pick, but is most likely to win. We have a Green Bay team. I think a lot of people might have them available because even though they haven't won since week 2, they lost in week 3. They tied in week 4, and they're coming off a bye in week 5. Some people, Michael, said Green Bay Super Bowl bound after week 2. Not so hot lately. What do you think of this Packer team?
Well, it's nice coming off a bye, right? Gives you a chance to, rest up from some of the bruises. This is a little bit as much of an indictment of Cincinnati and what's going on there as it is Green Bay playing at home coming off the bye. And after a pretty disappointing tie with what was, I think, some questionable calls as well against a Dallas team that really had no business scoring that many points against what appeared to be one of the best defenses in the league. The defense looks good. I really am still surprised at how Dallas was able to score so many points in that game. I thought Green Bay, kind of their play was, game management with love, give the ball to Jacobs and just play great defense. They got these 2 young bucks and, Dubs with his big helmet and Golden Tate Golden, not Tate, who's a stud. Cincinnati is really, they still can't run the ball. This losing their quarterback is just a huge disappointment. Yeah, Jamar Chase might have put up some fantasy points for you this last week, but that was because they were playing from well behind the whole game. This is the easy pick of the week, and I'm so kind of nervous about most of these other games
So,
that it's really the only one that has me saying, I don't know. What
well,
do you think?
Cincinnati is just, we knew their defense was bad, and it was masked by the fact how good Joe Burrow is. And I really thought Browning would be better. And it's not just me that's lost confidence in him. I mean, the Bengals went shopping at the old folks' home for quarterbacks and have signed Joe Flacco to this team. So that's a pretty clear indication that they're not satisfied with Browning the way Flacco has played this year. Flacco did not play well with Cleveland. So there are 2 main reasons against playing Green Bay. Because so few people have picked Green Bay, they're an incredibly high pick popularity, right? They're like 42% or greater in a lot of polls. People are picking Green Bay. So it's a lot of times you zig where others zag. And the other thing is they do have some future value. Not as much as you might think, though, Michael, because their best, yes, they host Minnesota in week 12 and Chicago in week 14, but their best game is week 9 when they host Carolina. But if you've been following my rule, which is save the Rams when they host the Saints that week in week 9, then you really don't need Green Bay. So let's do this task. It sounds like we both like Green Bay as a pick, but the question is, can we find a pivot? Is in any of these games worth it, even though we know that they're less likely to win this week? But because the pick popularity is high and they do have good future value, is these one of these games ones that we think we can recommend, especially if you're in these big leagues? So let me eliminate the LA Rams, the next game on the thing. LA Rams 8.5 at Baltimore. Michael, I know Baltimore is struggling, but in NFL Survivor, aren't you supposed to be, especially if you pick a team on the road, picking one of the worst teams in the NFL? If you're traveling to, if you're picking them in Survivor, Baltimore is not one of the worst teams. And right now, it's questionable whether Lamar Jackson will play. Now, I know Baltimore has a bye the following week, so they're probably going to rest him. But man, I'm not comfortable at all with this LA Rams pick for Survivor.
Yeah, I mean, talk about some bad coaching decisions in that 49er game. Obviously their defense looked pretty strong in the second half, but not great in the first half against an empty 49ers roster. But yeah, you're right. This Baltimore team is not the dredges, especially if Lamar Jackson plays. I mean, let's face it, even though John Harbaugh is a great coach, Cooper Rush is not a, serviceable backup. So I see the temptation, especially if this game wasn't in Baltimore. But it's in Baltimore. And even though their defense looks as bad as any defense, I just got to believe that John Harbaugh is going to make some changes to fix that. And remember, that's what happened to Baltimore last year. Their defense started poor. They made a few changes, and all of a sudden they became one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah. Well, and I'm completely out here because I'm keeping my oath. I told everybody, I've told them for multiple weeks, I am not picking the LA Rams. And aren't I glad I didn't do that last week? I am not picking the LA Rams until week 9 because that's when I want to use them when they're hosting the Saints. Um, okay. So it sounds like you're also out on this game.
I'm out.
Yeah. All right. So we got these two 7.5 point favorites. I'm going to be pretty quick on Philadelphia at the New York Giants. I'm not picking Philadelphia in no way. Yes, they have plenty of future value. Yes, it is also because it's the dreaded Thursday night game. I always hate Thursday night game. There's more, uncertainty when the short rest. But if you're going to give me such a good argument that Philadelphia can beat the New York Giants, and they will beat the New York Giants, you fully believe that? Malik Neighbors is out for the year. Then just wait 2 weeks when they play the New York Giants at Philadelphia rather than this game on the road.
Exactly. You said it. You said it right. I mean, Philly looked pretty disappointed this last week. This game is in New York, and even with the injuries, Jackson Dart's still kind of people are trying to figure him out. I think they're going to keep figuring him out each week. He was figured out this last week, and they looked pretty bad. But if somehow the Giants play this game close and it turns out to be a sneaky win, it's not going to happen 3 weeks from now in Philadelphia. That's one of the toughest places to play. I think Philadelphia has to figure a couple of things out. And why not let them figure that out? That's actually a tough week. And so that might be a nice week to be able to pick Philadelphia.
It's amazing. We're just 5 weeks into the season with Philadelphia and Buffalo losing. There are no undefeated teams. The old Miami team can celebrate again. That there's no one that's going to tie their record. I just want to quickly pause and tell everybody that if you want to help support the show, please smash that like button. Share your thoughts in the comment section for who you like as the Week 6 Survivor pick. And if you haven't yet, please hit that red subscriber button. What are you waiting for? All right. So, Michael, I'd like you to start the next one. Tell us about this Denver New York Jet game. Denver 7.5 point favorites in London.
Well, Denver was the one on the other side of this Philly game that I just mentioned. They looked great this last week. Not only did their defense look great, but Bo Nix and the offense came up pretty big there towards the end of that game. And guess who's looked pathetic? And it's been the Jets. Once again, not looking like a competitive team. Gosh, they're the only team in the NFL that hasn't won yet, right?
I know that's true that they haven't won yet. I have to double check that. Really? They're the only no one everyone else has gotten a win? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they are 0 and 5. And but the game's in London. And as we were reminded so carefully this last week, we got to be really thoughtful about these overseas games. Somebody pointed out that it wasn't the last game wasn't in Cleveland, and even though we had mentioned them as a home team, but I still wouldn't have picked Minnesota. I know they ended up getting the win, but barely by the skin of their teeth. Just had to put that plug in for some of our naysayers out there. So I do think the overseas games can be, kind of hard to determine what's going to happen. But really, this is one of the games, and I would say the same about the Philly game, where it seems pretty clear that the differential between between the better team and the worst team is most significant, not just in terms of power rankings or defense and offensive rankings, but just in terms of where the teams are currently at. So if the game were in Denver, I would feel differently. I would think, gosh, this might be the best pick of the week. But it's not. It's in London, and I think that's impactful.
Yeah, and in NFL Survivor, a lot of people have already used Denver, right? So, but
That's
if
right.
you haven't, you're certainly an option this week. As you said, the Jets have really been poor this year. That week one, they looked very good, almost beat Pittsburgh. Since then, it has not been good. And don't be fooled by just the final scores. A few games that they piled up some points late in the fourth quarter to make the final score look decent. Um, but I'm with you. I don't like the travel. If I didn't have other alternatives, then maybe but I feel like I do. I have other alternatives I like more. So I'm probably passing on this game. Plus, I like if you haven't used Denver, they still have some future value with the Giants in week 7, and no offense, but Las Vegas in week 10. They're hosting both of those teams back in Denver. So I would just wait a little bit on Denver. All right. Now, interesting. So we just eliminated the three of the different teams that were closest in overall spread to Green Bay. But I think these final three teams are intriguing because Indianapolis, Las Vegas, and Pittsburgh all have very little future value. It's kind of like if you're going to use them, now is the time. So I think it's really worth a discussion, especially if you're in a league that starts doubling up teams toward the end of the year. Maybe you do not take the Green Bay pick. So let's just have a discussion of these picks. Who do we feel the most comfortable with? And then we can go on and talk about whether that would potentially even make us make that pick for this week. Um, you know what? I can't wait to get you to start talking about your Las Vegas Raiders because it is not often. Same thing with my Seahawks, by the way. It's not often that we get to talk about our team, not as, no, be careful, we can pull off the upset. No, we're talking, they are one of our favorites here. Talk about Las Vegas. How confident are you that they can win at home against, I think, the worst team in football, the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the one I feel least comfortable. I've seen some power rankings that have the Raiders below Tennessee, but I agree with you. I think Tennessee is the worst team. This game is in Las Vegas. Not that Las Vegas is necessarily, better at home. Yes, they looked, Tennessee won and Las Vegas got destroyed by Indianapolis after what appeared to be kind of an interesting first and second quarter. Um, it is tempting to say, okay, Las Vegas is going to, bounce back and do what they should have done. Bowers could be back. He missed this last week. But your guy Geno Smith looks horrible right now, Eric.
Now he's my guy
You've
as the
said him
former
as your guy,
Seahawk.
so I'm just repeating what you've said. But I mean, don't be fooled by t Tennessee, beating Arizona. I mean, that was. I want to hear your thoughts on that Arizona game. That was the worst blow up I've ever seen, maybe in the history of the NFL. I mean, just so many things going poor. I got to kind of take a shot at Jonathan Gannon. Some of this is coaching, these guys that drop the ball as they're walking through the end zone, just some of the things that Kyler Murray has done, obviously the turnover that turned into a touchdown was a bit of a fluke. Um, and on the flip side, Shane Steichen, I'm sorry, I'm jumping to this next game. The answer on Las Vegas is don't bet on Vegas right now.
No, don't bet on them. I'm going to defer to you. I trust your judgment on your Raiders. It is enticing, folks. It is enticing but I think I have a better pick. If you need to go out there on a limb, another team I would rather do that with. So it's either Indianapolis or Pittsburgh, and I'm going to reveal which one in a second. But let's talk. You brought up Arizona. So let's talk about that Indianapolis 5.5 point favorites at home against Arizona. You said you don't know if you've ever seen an Arizona team collapse like this since all of football or whatever. How long has it been? I think you almost had an equal collapse just a couple of weeks ago by these same Arizona Cardinals. Maybe because I picked them that week and they played Carolina. You guys, if you want to be entertained, if you don't remember that game, just go on to YouTube, type Arizona Cardinals, Carolina Panthers highlights are ending, and it just time after time after time, Arizona made stupid penalties, stupid decisions, that trying to give Carolina the win. They weren't successful in giving it to Carolina, but they were against Tennessee. Anyways, let's talk about this Indianapolis game. Yeah, because of that, I said last week, look, I get things wrong on the show all the time. I certainly was comfortable with Buffalo winning against New England, and they lost. I did warn you on the Rams last week, and I warned you about Arizona. I think the quote was that Arizona is not that good of a team, and they're going to lose one of these games in which they're favored. So they're not a good team, but they're a little bit of a scary team to pick against. They don't have either of their running backs, James Conner or Trey Benson. The thing to watch is the health of Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is got a foot problem. That's terrible for Kyler Murray, right? Even if he plays, so much of his worth is his movement. So that is concerning. Jacoby Brissett's the backup. He's fine, but he's no Kyler Murray. So if here's my comment, Michael, and I want to get your take. If Kyler Murray is out and you want to go on a limb a little bit, this is my pick. Indianapolis Colts. If you didn't pick them, likely potentially last week.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty impressed with this Indy team, Coach Steichen, and also what Daniel Jones has been now that he has an offensive line to protect him, and how they've used, Warren. I think he threw the ball this last week. They're running the ball well, and their defense looks pretty good. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think if Kyler Murray is dinged up and playing or not playing, with what's going on in the backfield and just how Arizona's, playing in Indianapolis, playing, a second week in a row at home after a nice, safe win. If you're picking them here, I think it's because you're in one of those leagues where you probably would have picked them last year if you listened to listening to our show. So you
Last
probably
week?
don't have them available to you. But yeah, I think of these three games, this might be the one in those circumstances where I could get pretty excited about them.
Yeah. So just a little shout out to our DFS show, Michael, which I do by myself. Guess who the cover boy who I was bragging about last week? None other than Jonathan Taylor, who just scored 3 rushing touchdowns. So yes, so that's an interesting pick. We got to talk about this Pittsburgh game. Pittsburgh is 4.5 point favorites against Cleveland. And what's noteworthy is that Pittsburgh is coming off a bye, so they're fresh, and that they have basically no future value. I mean, you got to wait till week 15 until they host Miami in the cold. Likely Miami's usually not very good at that point, but very little future value there for Pittsburgh. Are you enticed at all?
You know what? Here's my caveat on this game. A little disappointed with Cleveland's defense, maybe not looking as solid this last week as in they were before, and the offense is just not is not clicking. Although I like this running back that they got,
Well, you,
Judkins.
you know who I like, Michael? I don't like rookie quarterbacks, but I was very impressed by Dylan Gabriel. I
Yeah, but
thought,
did you see how short he was? I had no idea. My guess is it's Steelers defense, although we'll be able to scheme against him. But here's my caveat. If Aaron Rodgers had some predictability to him, I would be all over this game because the Steelers look pretty put together right now. Coming off a bye, offensively, they've looked pretty good. They're using Aaron Rodgers, I think, wisely. Their defense is, pretty typical Mike Tomlin strong defense. And then going up against a Cleveland team, yeah, I hear what you're saying. The quarterback change was probably a big thing for them. But you know what opened things up for Gabriel was the running game. They used it well. Judkins was able to run pretty significantly against Minnesota, which opened things up. But at the end of the day, Cleveland's defense just couldn't hold it together.
you're ru-
Aaron Rodgers is just not stable right now.
you're rough on this Cleveland defense. I still am a believer in that defense, especially a defensive line behind Myles Garrett. It was only to the end of the game, I think it was 2017 that they lost, that
Yeah.
Minnesota scored. So they had Minnesota down to just scoring 13 points. A few weeks ago, they held Green Bay down to just 10 points the week before they scored 40 against Dallas. Um, Cleveland of the look, I'm not saying Cleveland's a great team, but of the teams that we normally say, hey, you can pick on, this Cleveland team scares me now.
Because of that
I
defense. Yeah, no, I mean, but I felt like Minnesota, with Jordan Mason, who got hurt, was able to run on Cleveland, and it really surprised me. And I watched that game. I was up early. For those folks who watched that game, you probably saw a similar. It really felt like Minnesota was able to move the ball, even with a backup quarterback in there, who didn't look particularly strong, didn't know how to get the ball into Justin Jefferson's hands. I mean, he got his yardage, but yeah, I was watching the game.
how good is this Pittsburgh team? Average, slightly below average, slightly above average. They're
Well, again,
pretty.
I think it all hinges on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think if they can allow him to make good throws, which he's been doing and using DK Metcalf really well. Because they have a nice balance with the run game, they're getting it out of his hands quickly. I mean, he at one time was top three quarterbacks in the league, right? And he's just it's hard to count on him.
Sounds good. I think it's time, Michael, for us to make our suggestions to our viewers for their pick for the week. Would you like me to go first, or would you like to go first?
Please,
So unless your rules are really out there having to make a ton of picks, even if it does, I think this is a week where I think you take the safe pick and pick Green Bay, who's a 2 touchdown favorite. Does Green Bay have some future value? Sure. But I would be saying if this week was like 3 weeks from now, wow, you got to save Green Bay for that week because they're so much more likely to win, in my opinion, over anybody else this week that go ahead and burn them this week. It's okay. Is my attitude. I'll comment in a bit. I'll let you speak first. for the. I really I don't need to talk about anything more. If you disagree or you just don't want to use Green Bay, I guess if Kyler Murray is out, I'm okay with Indianapolis. But I strongly recommend Green Bay, and I don't feel like I need to give a pivot because I think if you are still alive in your pool, you probably have Green Bay because the weeks that most people pick Green Bay, they lost, and those people are out unless you're in a league that you're given more than one strike. And if you are, what kind of league is that? That's not Survivor. That's Second Chance Survivor. Anyway, Michael, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this one. I think this is a nice place to use Green Bay. Like you said, the other week you might use them is the week to use the Rams. Most people haven't used the Rams. So safe pick. Let's go with Green Bay.
All right, Michael, as usual, love breaking down this with you. You and I are in agreement, which probably means Cincinnati is going to pull off an upset, but we'll see. We'll see. And until week 7, folks, take care. Wish you the best. Enter those comments who your pick for week 6 is. And until week 7, take care, everybody.